I'm gonna hold your hand while I say this. You are never gonna be her, and that's a good thing. In today's video, we're gonna explore how being magnetic is really all about being the most authentic version of you that you can be. And in that, you will find so much more enjoyment than just being her, being this idea of what we should conform to. By being your most authentic self, that's how you create true magnetism that pulls people towards you and pulls the right people towards you. When we pursue her, we're not actually giving ourselves credit for all of the unique skills and talents that are you. Authentic magnetism is gonna ruffle some feathers, and that is a good thing because those are the feathers you don't want. You don't want to attract that. Not only that, but this can resolve your cognitive dissonance. So when you're kind of working towards one thing that you think you should be doing, your behaviors don't really align, you can either shift your beliefs or shift your behavior so that you essentially don't get pulled into the splits and fall in the water. You kind of need to realign those two boats so that they're going in the same direction. One way you can do that is through reevaluating this idea and belief that you have that you need to be this her. And maybe there are some instances where you actually think, okay, this maybe isn't actually something that I truly really value. What does she do? Maybe she, her, is somebody who does a lot of Pilates, drinks her matcha, and looks a certain clean way, right? And maybe that is something that you kind of want, but is that realistic? Is that your authentic self? Is that your strengths? Maybe actually your strengths are looking after people. You love to be around people and help others. And you actually decide, you know, I could go and really work on myself and go to the gym. I want that Pilates body. I want to be her. I want this cleanness. But then that takes away that actually your strengths are connecting with people. You love to care for others. What's a better investment of your time to make you the most authentic version of you? I'm not saying that going to the gym, obviously, I love that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but would you be happier and more authentic if you spent that hour going to the gym as volunteering or being with your family? I think these are all valid options, and you need to think about what is you. We're told that we need to do certain things to be her, but for you to attract and to magnetize the highest version of you, maybe you actually don't need to do all of those things. You need to be kind of choosy about what you want to amplify, because whatever you are amplifying becomes your magnet, and that becomes what you attract, and you then blossom into your authentic self. There are lots of things that are valid things that humans should do, and we have all of these opportunities and connections for a good thing. There are creative people, there are sporty people, there are career-focused people, and there are people that are really good at connecting with others. And if we're all trying to do it all, it kind of washes out the richness and depth of human experience and individual differences. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we should all stop trying to be this her and be ourselves. Because if we were living in a world where there were just loads of hers walking around all the time, it would be kind of dull. Life is so much more rich and diverse when individuals flourish in what truly lights them up. So maybe you want the Pilates body, but maybe actually your time is better invested in doing what really you love. And that is okay if that is something different. The key question is, what do you actually want? Getting clear on that can help you craft which direction you start to intentionally grow into, rather than just being prescribed this kind of idea of her. And don't get me wrong, her, she can have lots of different forms. We can still use kind of visual aesthetics to aspire to. We can still tailor and be driven in our goals and always want to be better and improve ourselves. But we don't have to be prescribed to this idea of having to do it all. There's this concept in neurodiversity called masking, which is where people who are neurodiverse, so maybe they have autism or ADHD, diagnosed or undiagnosed, however you want to relate, feel as though that there are so many social norms and pressures that we have to adhere to really high standards, and it's really cognitively taxing. It's really difficult to be keeping track of everything that's going on. And that can also be applied to a lot of people who don't experience neurodiversity, but are trying to achieve this kind of this social idea that we need to, as women, be people that don't rock the boat, that get things right and please others. And in being authentic, we can start to take some of that power back into thinking, what happens when I rock the boat? What happens when I listen to what I need and what I want and I go after that? And trust me, amazing things start to happen. When we let go of shoulds and what we are told that we should do, and we start living and designing a life that really sparks joy for us, that really lights us up, life can blossom into so many more incredibly creative things. So much better than the life of this her that we must let go of. A lot of that is subject to our bodies and what we look like. As someone who's experienced different body shapes, really the criticism doesn't even stop. We think that when we are her, when we look good, but no, now you're too thin, you're too muscular. Before you were too fat. Honestly, the standards that we put on her, the standards that we put on ourselves to get everything right are really high. And often it can be a trap because it's whatever we don't currently have. I remember I must have been like 7 years old, and I went to my maths teacher and she had this beautiful long straight red hair, and I just said, I love your hair. Miss Norris, I love your hair so much. And she said to me, I always wish I had curly hair. And at that point, I remember so clearly kind of realizing that I had this kind of curly, wavy hair and I wanted straight hair. Miss Norris, with the beautiful straight hair, wanted curly hair. Sometimes we want what we don't have. Neither of them is better or right. There is no perfect hair type. Sometimes it can just be our mindset telling us whatever we currently don't have is what we should be striving towards. And that's where we get stuck in this kind of trap of constantly pursuing something different. Whereas when we're authentic, we're able to truly magnetize the best qualities that we already have. We don't need to chase anything else. You already have everything you need to be magnetic. It's within you, and it's through being the most confident, authentic self that you already have. So if you're trying to be her all the time, how is that going to shift your perception of who you are, of yourself? Ultimately, it starts to make you see insecurities and ways that you're not her, which is really bad for your self-esteem. When we're working on ourselves, we want to be looking at what strengths we already have and amplifying those things, rather than going for something that we're just told is the right thing to do. We need to make sure that we're being authentic in what we are magnetizing about ourselves so that we attract the right kind of thing. And let me go through this in a really practical sense. So a while back, I went to this networking event and I met the most fascinating person who is now one of my closest friends, all because of the way her self-expression was so authentically her. Not her, but actually her. She was wearing this funny little hat and this big long coat that matched in this brown colour. And I was just so drawn to her. And what happens when you are being your authentic self is that you magnetize the right kind of energy that you actually want to bring in. So because of that, I felt so drawn to her that I had to go say hi. Turned out we had loads in common and we were able to make a really good friendship. Versus if I had seen someone who was kind of not quite the same vibe that I was into, I'm probably not going to approach them. That's how it literally works in terms of what you're magnetizing. And even if you're someone that doesn't feel like they want to approach people, it's the same. I'm not going to approach someone who doesn't quite have the same energy, that doesn't pull me in. So we want to be really careful about what direction we're growing into, and if that is a true representation of our authentic self. Because if we're just conforming to what the masses kind of think that we should do, we're not going to pull in those same opportunities and relationships that we actually really want. And this paradox creates tension. We know when we're not being the kind of person that we really want to be, it creates anxiety, it creates tension. This is called cognitive dissonance. And you can think about it because say your goals are one thing and your actions and true beliefs are another thing. If they don't align, you're kind of trying to grow in two different directions, and that feels really challenging to be in. A classic example of this is, say you believe you should do something for yourself. So say you believe that you should stop smoking, or you should go to the gym more. You want to start working on your fitness, you want to improve your health. So you know that you should maybe exercise more than you currently do. That's your belief. But then if your actions don't align to that, it feels bad, because you kind of subconsciously deep down know, I am not working towards that, and it doesn't feel good. You're kind of like, one of your feet is in this boat that's going towards the, I want to do this, I want to work on my health. But if your other foot is stuck in a boat that's not aligned with that, your behaviors don't match your belief, and that is cognitive dissonance. If your belief is that you need to be this idealized version that society says women should be, that is trendy at the moment, that says that you need to look a certain way, to express yourself in a certain way, to be, quite frankly, perfect is her, your behavior is going to have a really hard time meeting that standard. And also, your behavior probably won't match that, because what you're actually good at, what you truly want to magnetize, is not her, but your version of being the most authentic version of you. Celebrities and artists in particular are such incredible, inspiring examples of what really happens when you are authentic to the next level. And someone who's been described as maybe the most authentic artist on the planet, you might not have heard of him, but he is the only British artist to have a Grammy for, I think, every album he's ever released. His name is Jacob Collier, and I actually went to see one of his concerts. And what he does is he gets the audience to kind of sing along with him, but to create a kind of choir. His music is a complete mix of all genres, and to be honest, it's kind of a bit strange and weird. And he comes on in yellow Crocs and wears these big flamboyant outfits. You can tell that he is just fearless of what other people might think of him and judgments. Although I'm sure he has received a lot of that. He attributes his kind of understanding of himself, and he's able to be authentic because of how he was raised, unsurprisingly, by 3 women who taught him that in being himself, he is giving his kind of gift to the world through his music. If he were trying to be any other kind of musician, he wouldn't be able to attract the type of audience that enjoy his music and enjoy his performance. If you suddenly switched every member of that audience, they might have sat there and be like, oh my gosh, this is so weird, what are we doing? But because he is so authentic in himself, it means that he attracts the right kind of people who adore and love his music. We are all creative designers in our lives, and we can take inspiration from this. You want to essentially create and manifest and design your audience to be your best cheerleaders, to love and support you for what you do. And you can only really do that when you learn to let go of some of that pressure to conform, some of those fears around what people might think of you. And that's really difficult to do. But the reward on the other side is being able to just be completely authentically yourself and be celebrated in that by your right crowd. That is true magnetism. A key skill in developing authenticity is also looking at our confidence, how we're able to show up as our authentic selves and turn down the volume a little bit on our kind of fears of how others might perceive us. And a really good way to do that is through visualization. So if you're interested, I actually have a playlist where I've recorded some visualizations for you to go and practice. Actually, what does it feel like to be in this authentic state? And the more you practice that, the more it starts to become a habit, and the more you can then magnetize this dream life that is so close. It's already within you. You just need to kind of build the muscle memory of what it feels like and then go after it. So here's a link to that playlist where you can go and learn more. And I hope that I've convinced you. We don't need to be her. You need to be you. Thank you so much, friends. See you next time.